Welcome to episode 9 of The Racer's Edge in association with F1 Racing Magazine, coming to you for the first time from our brand new studio in the hallowed halls of LAT Photographic within the Haymarket headquarters in Teddington, Surrey, England. Feels great from where I sit. Hope it looks all right where you are too. Well, what a week it's turning out to be. James Allison, generally rated by F1 observers, including myself, as the number 2 technical director in the pit lane behind Adrian Newey, this week announced that he was leaving Lotus F1. Not at the end of the year, not in 3 months' time, not in 2 weeks' time, just leaving, just like that. That is shell-shocking news, particularly for the team, of course, particularly for Kimi Räikkönen, who is looking very, very good in terms of the 2013 World Championship. Now, the team will say, and of course the team have to believe, that they can seamlessly carry on. And Nick Chester has already been appointed as the new technical director of Lotus F1. Nick, a good guy. He's been with that team for a long time. Very good to see an internal promotion happening yet again. James was indeed in a similar situation. But the question remains, how good will the team now be without James? There's no question that James not only is very smart, but also has a great attitude, is a great motivator of people, and a funny guy, just a good bloke to be around. And I always imagine that Kimi Räikkönen gets on very well with James Allison. So for Kimi, this is a really, well, I wouldn't say it's a big blow, but it's a significant time for him to consider the rest of his Formula One career. Let's hope, for the sake of the championship, let's hope for the sake of all Kimi lovers out there, and indeed Lotus F1 fans, that things do continue to run as they should. But it's not easy for a team to recover from a change like this. And I can imagine at this moment, Kimi's probably thinking, I will see how things go. If things feel more or less the same, I may well stay at Lotus F1 in 2014. But if things don't feel the same, I may well now look at other options. So watch this space, as it were, over the next few months to see what's going on. Where will James Allison go? That is the big question. And again, as I speak, that question being thrown around the paddock in Barcelona, no answer to it as yet. I suspect we'll know within the next few days. Even if it's going to be kept very secret, it's very difficult to keep secrets in a Formula One paddock over a Grand Prix weekend. But it's always fun at this moment, I think, when we don't actually know, to kind of speculate on what might happen. I was just chatting to Anthony Rowlandson, the editor-in-chief of F1 Racing, about all the possibilities. And of course, the main name mentioned is that of Ferrari. He may go back to Ferrari. It seems the most likely place for James. He's been there before. He left Ferrari, but he probably left Ferrari because at the time he was one of the team of engineers. He was working within the Italian infrastructure. Maybe he missed England. Maybe things weren't quite the way he wanted it. But of course, if he goes back to Ferrari now, and indeed if that deal's already done, he will be going back as an undisputed head of the whole technical department at Ferrari, a completely different situation. And of course, one has to think about the money. It's not pleasant to talk about money. I don't think it's anybody's business, really, what everybody earns. But having said that, Eric Boullier, the team principal of Lotus F1, is on record as saying that he doesn't approve of the large amounts of money that are currently starting to fall out of the sky for everybody, including drivers, but particularly for technical staff. And one can read into that James can feel that his market value is somewhat greater than perhaps the money he's been earning at Lotus F1. Now, if we're to put just a supposition on that of what sort of money he's been on, the sort of rate that I think he would be looking for if he was going to go to a McLaren, for example, would probably be in the £400,000 bracket. And if he's going to Ferrari, I can imagine he'd be paid probably twice that. I may well be wrong, I'm well out of order, but if it is around the 800 mark, and let's say at Lotus F1 he was on, I don't know, 250, 300, something like that, you can imagine that's quite a big incentive. However, it wouldn't really explain why he's leaving mid-season, because that's quite a big thing to do for your team as well, or to your team. So a lot of questions unanswered there. I'm sure money is not the only issue. One would have to say that, given the abruptness of his departure. I was in the Philippines over the weekend, last weekend that is, with Eric Boullier on a Lotus F1 speed show, more of which anon. And it was significant, probably, that Eric was there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but then left to fly back to England Saturday night, Sunday morning. And it looked to me as if something quite urgent had cropped up. So I'm assuming that that's at that moment, that's when things started to change at Lotus F1. As I say, let's hope that it all continues relatively seamlessly, but there will be choppy waters ahead of the whole Kimi Lotus thing now, because for me, James Allison was one of the key elements of that team doing so well. Let's just hope it continues. Right, lots going on in the show. We better get on with it relatively quickly. My guest tonight is a driver that I always admired and always got on well with and miss currently from the Formula One grid. I say currently, we'll probably never see him again. He's been very low profile and very quiet over the last year or so since he eventually stopped racing. And I thought it was about time we caught up with him to find out what he's been doing, what he thinks about modern Formula One, current Formula One, and indeed what he thinks about some of the moments of his Formula One career. So it was a great pleasure that we caught up online with Jarno Trulli from his house apartment in Lugano on the Swiss-Italian border. Jarno Trulli.
Jarno, thank you so much for joining us, and it's good to see you again after all this time. What have you been doing? What have you been doing the last year? What is your life like now?
Well, my life hasn't changed a lot, to be honest, apart from the fact that I'm not racing anymore. But I'm quite busy in all the other business, and I'm still doing a lot of sports. At the moment, I'm involved in the hotel business as well as in the wine business. You know that I've been producing wine for the last 13 years, which is a family business. On the other hand, I acquired a hotel in Davos. It's a ski resort. Davos is the place where every year we host the World Economic Forum. And the hotel has been awarded as the best hotel of the region, so obviously very happy about that. Well, I have a business office here in Lugano, where I live with my family and with my wife and children. So here we have plenty of services for people on finance side, but as well on the real estate. So a lot of things going on. And on top of that, obviously, I keep training because I keep doing cycling competition from time to time. So I've done recently the Tour of Sardinia, so 7-day stage around Sardinia, and in 2 weeks' time I will have another race of 200 kilometers, 9 hills to climb. So I'm quite busy.
Well, just on that subject and getting into questions straight away, we've had a lot on Facebook. Igor Azarakovic, I hope I pronounced that correctly, has asked about your plans on cycling Giro di Sardinia, Dolomites, but what is the next? Are you really thinking perhaps of going as far as you can with a cycling career?
No, to be honest, I'm not good enough. So for sure, I was a much better athlete on a racing car than what I am on cycling. Cycling for me is just a way to keep fit, enjoy the pure sport with friends, and experiencing different sports, different experience. But it's nice to be, with other people and exploring different countries, but as well different places by cycling.
Yes, I can imagine. And Jarno, it sounds to me as if not racing hasn't been a major problem for you. Many Formula One drivers, many racing drivers do have a problem when they don't race, but it sounds like your life is very full.
Well, I'm quite busy, and I think maybe it's the fact that there are a few reasons probably why I'm not missing racing. First of all, I always thought that after racing there is another life, and there is plenty of things to do in life. So if you really are creative and you are dynamic as I am, you obviously want to build up something new or move on. Then I think that I've been racing for more than 30 years, so it's quite a big part of my life. And third, because the last few years with the poor team made me realize that in fact I was enjoying racing. I love racing more than anything else. I think I was only enjoying it if I was winning or anyway fighting for victory. When I realized that there was no chance with a little team and with a poor team, with poor resources, there was no way, there was no point to carry on.
Well, on that note, again on Facebook, Sunya Zolotar, again, I hope I pronounced that correctly, asks how seriously you considered racing in NASCAR before you took the decision to drive for Caterham, and do you have any regrets there?
Well, I don't want to live with regrets. Obviously, yeah, I was trying to see if I had some chances in NASCAR, but then eventually I took the chance again, Formula One. It's easy now to say it was a mistake, but on the other hand, I think we can make mistakes in life, but I don't regret anything. This is what happened, and we don't know if it would have been any better if I would have gone to NASCAR. So we don't know.
Yeah, and mistakes in life actually are ways of moving forward, and you learn from those. And I think your attitude not to have regrets is a very, well, it's typically Jarno, really. I mean, I've known you a long time now, and I know the period you went through with the groove tires and how irritating that was for you. But you kind of had to go on with it. But looking back now, that groove tire thing was just ridiculous. Eh? For what purpose? No purpose at all.
The purpose was to try to slow down cars, but there were another way to slow down cars. I think the groove tires had nothing to do with a racing car or with a racing tires, and only made life hard for some drivers and some people and a lot of teams. And obviously, some people lived it better than others, and I was the one which, honestly, I was affected quite a lot, especially when the groove tires, the philosophy or an example of the Michelin groove tires was the fact that the groove had to go as soon as possible. So basically you had almost one lap, okay, almost, and then you had to go through, I don't know, 4 or 5 laps, very hard on tires in order to wear them out, and then get another 3, 4 or 5 laps of good quality tires, but which for a driver with a very clean driving style, these 2, 3 or 4 laps would mean probably 10 laps. So for me, it was a nightmare.
Yeah, and then they just went. They just suddenly decided not to continue anymore. There was no explanation. It was not a good time for Formula One. But just on that subject, talking about tires, how much interest and how much do you follow the current situation, and if so, what is your view? I mean, you must be quite pleased you're not involved in all this Pirelli mix-up.
You are right. It's hard to understand what's going on there, to be honest, in the last few years. Obviously, I cannot really judge because I drove Pirelli for the last 2 years, and but I wasn't really driving a Formula One car. I was, very far from a real racing car. So it's hard really to judge tires. I had too many troubles. There were too many troubles in the car. But looking from outside at the moment, it looks like that the Pirelli, pushed probably by the federation, FIA, is trying to mix up a little bit the grid or mix up the situation with the tire consistency through the race. And so a lot of people struggled last year. I think, a lot of teams, they were scratching their head at the beginning in order to understand which way they had to go with these tires. And again, this year, it looks like, that the grid is trying to mix up quite a lot and it's passing up somehow the races for the people that are at home. But on the other hand, you have to understand that this makes life very hard for people who professionally work at the circuit, at the track. And don't forget that the fact of spicing up and mixing up the result of the race is not really pure sport. It's just gambling. And it's a bit strange or hard to understand from my point of view, which obviously I am a professional driver. And anyway, I'm someone who has been living for quite many years in this business. So I know very well the situation.
And speaking of situations, what did you think of the Mark Webber, Sebastian Vettel stuff in Malaysia?
I personally have my point of view, which might be criticized or not, but this is a personal point of view. I do respect quite a lot Vettel because I think he's a great guy and a great driver, and he's showing it out the track and on the track. I personally criticize his attitude in Malaysia just for one reason. It was very clear that the team they were playing a team rule during the end of the race. So basically, the victory, the first and second place was in their hand. They only have had to manage it. Okay, and it was a clear indication that both drivers had to turn their engine down, which Vettel didn't do it, and Webber did it. So at that stage, I don't think Vettel had to do that. First, because he didn't respect the rules and from the team, but second, because in his position, a young driver, 3 times world champion, I think he doesn't need to do that. He doesn't need to prove anything. Obviously, I can somehow understand his point of view that he's a racing driver that wants to fight. Okay, but he's also a relationship with the team, with his teammate for the rest of the season. And in my point of view, he didn't need to do that.
Jarno, while you were talking, I was thinking back to 2004, really, and when you had Fernando Alonso alongside you at Renault, and you did very well in qualifying in terms of pace. You were right there. And let's take that great weekend at Monte Carlo. What was it like before the race in terms of any team orders that Flavio may or may not have tried to give you? And what was Fernando hoping to do you think, in that race?
I think all that year still remember very well that obviously most of the attention was on Fernando, because Fernando was a young racing star and a great driver. And obviously Flavio had a long-term contract with him. And for me, the contract was expiring. So there was no need to help myself in order to do well. But despite that, I managed to do some very good results. And obviously in Monaco, everyone expected me to be in the front. Obviously, I scored pole position. And during the race, I knew that I had to fight Fernando. And Fernando had, at that time, more fuel than me, which meant that for the race, he had a little advantage. But I managed to keep him away, and at one stage of the race, I had something like 30-second gap over him. So I was basically controlling the race. But then they started with the blue flags and back marker. And I took it slightly easy, because you know how Monaco is. You know, a little mistake, a little risk, you might end up in rails. So in 5-6 laps, I've lost most of my gap because Fernando was pushing really, really hard and taking a lot of risk. And in the end, he ended up in the wall because of taking too many risks. So that's how I won Monaco, because I think I deserved it, because I dominated all weekend, through qualifying, through the race. And, by mid-season, I had 16 points gap over Fernando Alonso. So what can I say more? I think I was doing pretty well at the time.
That's the understatement of the conversation, that's for sure. Jarno, can I suggest that perhaps one of the reasons you are living the life you are now today, with a smile on your face, getting on with it, is because you did win Monaco and you had that at least behind you? Do you think your life would be different if you'd never won a Grand Prix?
It's hard to say, because that Grand Prix really changed the situation and a lot of tension inside the team, because I was not meant to win that Grand Prix. And in some way, Flavio showed it straight away after the race when he said, you were lucky because otherwise you would have won the Grand Prix because Fernando went off. That makes you understand a lot, I think, and probably it's time to leave the team. But apart that, I'm happy because I've tried to do my best. I think in some way I've achieved a good thing. Maybe I could have done better, but who knows? On the other hand, I think I'm conscious that I've tried my best, and whether it didn't happen or was not good enough, well, that's the way it went. I'm happy because I have a nice family, I have a nice life. I'm still very busy. And racing now, it's something that it's behind me. I've done it for many years. I've seen the highs and the lows, so I've experienced a little bit of everything.
Jarno, it's interesting talking about you today to current new Formula One drivers, particularly new Formula One drivers, who now have you out there as the driver that could put together almost the perfect qualifying lap in a way that you very rarely see. During your time, of course, it was a much harder thing for you. But looking back now, it's interesting how many people do perceive you that way. So I'd love to just talk to you a little bit about that and maybe say to you, what do you think was the best qualifying lap you ever drove? And equally, how did you do it?
It's hard to say or to pick up which one was a perfect lap. I think the perfect lap is always the one which has to come. The one you have done, if you really think about it, you might always have some little improvement. So honestly, I never thought I was doing something special. It was more down to the people to criticizing or basically to saying that I was doing great things in qualifying. But I think I was only trying to get the best out of myself and out of the qualifying or out of the car in that particular situation. So basically low fuel, perfect tire grip from the tire, so perfect condition. And I've done it many times, and I think it was something that I was not particularly how can I say concentrate to do that. It was quite natural for me to go out and just put a quick lap. I think it was more down to other drivers which were not capable of doing it, because I don't think I was doing anything special or so great. So honestly, that was my feeling. So it might sound a bit strange, but that's the way I see it.
No, it sounds like what we suspect, which is that it was all completely natural from your point of view. And when it is natural, it's quite difficult to be subjective about it. But as an observer, let me also just say this. To me, what made you stand out was the transition point between traveling in a straight line and initiating the first part of the corner was absolutely imperceptible with you. Usually it was beautifully seamless, whereas most drivers, Fernando still today, but even more so in the Renault days, you could see a distinct flick as he begins the turn-in phase. Bro, you, in every car you ever drove, you always made the car look very slow, actually, because you never looked out of shape.
That is one of the characteristics which in some way follow me from karting already up to Formula One, which probably on one side was positive, on other side was negative. Was positive because when the car was okay and I was happy about it, I was able to extract the best out of the car. But because of my driving style, in other situations probably I was not capable of express myself or extracting the best of the car. Or an example, the slow motion you're talking about and the clean driving style I had. It was quite penalizing in some circumstances, like on wet condition and cold track. I was never able to put enough temperatures on the tires, or as well with groove tires, I was never able to clean the groove from top of the tire. So I might have been looking good in some situation, but in other situation probably I was struggling more than other drivers.
And you also seem to spend more time than most actually working on how to drive in a straight line as well. You were quite diligent about where was the best place to be on the straights. That was an important part of the lap for you, right?
Yes, I was taking care of a little bit of everything, as I think most of the drivers should do, or they did. I think another strength point was the fact that I was very fair on track, and once I was fighting with people, I was always leaving room for them to attack. But the good thing is that I was always leaving the room I wanted to leave them. So it was hard to get me during a fight. I've done some great races in front of other people which had a better car or they were quicker than me. So in some way, I think I've extracted very often the best out of myself and out of the car in qualifying. A little bit less during the race, but I was still capable anyway of doing a great thing considering the car I was driving.
Jarno, at the Formula One Zone on Twitter now is saying Has qualifying been devalued in your view, seeing that qualifying was one of your strengths? And I guess he's referring to DRS now and how you can do such a great job in qualifying, but it can all disappear relatively simply these days, and also the tyre situation.
That's my point of view. Again, I didn't like at all the DRS and all the other electronic system. But I tell you my point of view. I drove the car for the first time with the DRS and the cars during my last test in Jerez. And I tell you, I was spending more time concentrating on the buttons and the timing to push the buttons and recovering the energy and concentrating on how much energy I was trying to save and then use afterwards, rather than concentrating on how much I could brake later or accelerate earlier through the corner. And that's something not quite natural for a racing driver. If I have to be fair, it's something that I didn't like at all. When I really get out of the car, I say this is like a video game. It's not anymore racing. I cannot say that has taken something away from qualifying or the race, but for sure I've taken something away, quite a lot away from a driver point of view. On the other hand, we can say that this has spiced up racing. If this is what we wanted, that's fair. But as a personal point of view and as a driver point of view, as a racing driver, I told you I didn't enjoy it at all.
And on that note, Kvorov Nikita wants to know what you think about the 2014 engine regulations, where it's becoming even more technical on that side as well, with the fuel rate restrictions that are coming in and the turbos. What do you think about that?
I'm not following a lot what will happen in the future. But obviously, every rule change it means an extra cost, especially for smaller teams, which they are already struggling now, and I don't know where they will up in the future. So I can't really judge where the rules are heading to and what we will get. But for sure, this will have a big impact on the finance of the small teams.
And on Twitter, @Ande23 says, what is your opinion on the lack of Italian drivers in Formula One now?
Well, it's sad to say, to be honest. We have always had Italian drivers in Formula One, and now maybe we have closed an era, and we have to open a new era where we will have to find and look for good young Italian guns. It's not easy. We got some drivers coming up, and Balsecchi is one of them, but it's hard really to judge. And in this difficult situation, economical situation, also Italians are not doing well. So we also find it hard to find finances behind us, to back us, to get to a Formula One car. So it's a difficult situation, which is also somehow hard to say.
Jarno, Dissect2 wants you to know that you still got some great fans in the United States of America. I know you're a bit of a fan of the States as well, right?
Yeah, a lot. I always go to US every year with my family, so I try to spend there between 15 days, a month. And obviously, I send my kids to school in order to speak English. So I love US.
And @C Cassingham wants to know how the wine business is now. And on the adjunct to that, on Facebook, Tatu Zolotar is saying he loves your wine, but it's not easy to find in Russia. Are you going to come to Russia and present the wine there? What's going on?
Yeah, both markets are being worked at the moment, and we probably soon be present massively on the both US and American and Russian market. In US, we are already in, but we are expanding the market quite a lot recently, while we are talking with two big Russian importers. And we hope that soon, between 6 months, maybe 1 year, we will be coming to Russia in order to present the wine, do some wine tasting. So I hope to be there in Russia again, because I spent a few days in Moscow some years ago.
Well, we've obviously got lots of Russian viewers, so let us know when that's happening, and we can tell them all about it. But Jarno, how is the wine business right now?
Wine business is doing very well, because it's one of those businesses that basically it's exporting a lot. I would say 90% of the production is exported. So we are not feeling the economical crisis. We are actually growing up every year. So I cross my fingers that things keep going like that. And on top of that, we've been awarded in the last 2 years as best Italian wine. So obviously many awards coming, but as well many satisfaction. People starting to know more and more what I've been doing for the last 13 years. It's a family business, so the wine is doing very, very well so far.
Jarno, another question asks whether you're going to do any kart races with some other Formula One drivers, like the Massa event and a few other things, and how much of your life karting fills these days. And let's talk also about your two boys as well and what they're hoping or not hoping to do.
The moment, no, I don't plan to get behind the wheels soon. I don't have this feeling at the moment. I'm happy the way I am, and as I say, I use cycling to use all my energy and race somehow. Of course, I'm not going to cycle to win a race, but I still try to get the best out of myself. This is what I really want. On the other hand, the two kids, they are good at school. The boss at the moment seems not very interesting in racing. They are more into the football or basketball or other sports. So let's see what will happen in the future.
You and your wife must be very happy about that.
Yeah, so but it's still too early, Peter.
So, Jarno, you haven't talked about Pescara very much in this interview. Do you spend much time there still or not?
I just came back from Pescara.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, we spent some days. We do normally, because the kids now they go to school. We always spend most of the time here in Lugano. That's why I've got a business here and in Davos. But as well, I do travel quite a lot to Pescara because of the wine and other things. So Pescara, an example, we go back to Pescara during the holidays or during the summer when the kids they don't go to school. During the summer, this summer, we are trying to organize a special meeting with the worldwide fans in my winery, especially the Japanese. They're really a big follower, and they want to come and see me and spend a few days there at the winery. So we are trying to set up this like a big fan club welcome in Pescara and in my winery.
Do you drink wine yourself, Jarno?
Yes, of course, a little bit.
And what's your recommendation for the new?
I prefer red, and I recommend red for everyone. But obviously, we got some nice Italian white wines, and as well a prosecco. I like prosecco.
And Jarno, so is the karting track still there in Pescara? What's happened with that then?
The karting track is still there. I can see it every time I cycle through. I never stop, to be honest. No, I don't have time. I'm rushing quite a lot, to be honest, Peter. I'm quite busy.
Well, I feel guilty almost taking up this time, but I just want to finish by just asking how your life is actually balanced these days. How big a project is the Davos Hotel relative to the wine, to the cycling? How do you proportion your time?
It's hard to say because, honestly, I wake up every day 7 o'clock in the morning and until 11 o'clock, I'm busy. In the evening, normally sort out all the papers here in my desk and emails and stuff. But during the day, I do travel a lot. I go to Milan. I do travel to Canada because we are developing a big project over there, which I can't talk now about it. But it's quite a big real estate project, which I hope it will happen soon.
Can you tell us what part of Canada?
Montreal.
Wow. So we might see you there at the Grand Prix or not?
I do fly there regularly during the season. I don't know if I'm gonna come during the Grand Prix, but definitely during the year I go 3 or 4 times over there.
Jarno, do you watch the Formula One on television regularly?
From time to time, yes. The trouble now is that in Italy, an example, you have to pay to view, and not everywhere I go I have the pay-per-view. So only when I'm home. So not easy to follow every qualifying races. And again, during the weekend, normally I go with the cycle competition. So I only see the results at the end of the day. So probably I will probably come to Monaco because I am a guest of some people. So I might take a chance to see you.
No, we look forward to seeing you there. And one final question on Twitter, and I think you've explained the answer, is are you going to be on Twitter? Because there are quite a lot of fake Jarno Trullis out there that have done a reasonably good job. Yeah. But I guess you just don't have time for all this new...
I tell you my point of view. I never had Twitter and I never had Facebook, and I'm glad I'm not into it because I know that I have a lot of followers, and I'm sad about, to say that. But it's almost impossible to cope with emails and stuff. Then I have to admit, or I thought about that if you have time, there are people that they use Twitter a lot and they use Facebook. But in my opinion, it's just a way to publicize themselves. I'm not that kind of people. If you are my friend, if you know me, you know where to find me, you know how to reach me, and you know where you can see me or meet me. There is no need on my side to tell you whether I am eating, whether I am playing tennis, or whether I'm with my family. I think it's private life is something different from racing and all the other stuff. I've never been a star, and I don't want to be a star. I am a very ordinary person. And I think Twitter and Facebook is just a way, really, to raise their image around the world, which is something that I really never needed, and I want to do it now.
Jarno, I would say that you're a very ordinary person, and that's a very special person, and it's been a privilege talking to you, and thanks for sharing your time and your thoughts with us. And I hope we see you again very soon. I know you do have so many fans around the world, and obviously it's a growing fan club in terms of the wine as well. And as soon as when is the hotel opening in Davos?
It's opening end of this month again, good. And we are quite fully booked, so it's pretty good. The last 2 seasons have been pretty good, so we are happy about that.
What's it called?
Meyerhof. It's the oldest hotel in Davos.
Wonderful. We're going to have to come there. Jarno, thank you so much, and take care with all your travels, and good luck with all your projects.
I hope to talk to you too soon again in the future.
Thank you, Jarno. Ciao.
Jarno Trulli hasn't really changed. What a lovely guy. And I think he's got his proportions absolutely right in terms of life, his family, and his Formula One career. It was interesting today, actually. I was looking online at his hotel in Davos, the Meyerhof, and also going on to autosport.com, as we all do, to catch up with all the latest news. And autosport.com on the right had a hotels.com ad, and it had picked up my interest in Davos, Switzerland, and was giving me the room rates for the Meyerhof, £168. Well, that's quite a lot, or it's not much. I'm sure it's a great hotel. And I don't want to put words in Jarno's mouth here, but I'm sure if you mentioned that you were a viewer of the Racer's Edge in association with F1 Racing Magazine and were a big Formula One fan, you might even get a discount from Mr. Trulli, who knows, or from indeed his management staff there. It's also been another amazing week for Rob Wilson, our resident driver coach here on the Racer's Edge. Would you believe that Rob had 5 of the top 7 finishers in the recent Sao Paulo IndyCar race, and including the top 3, which were James Hinchcliffe, Taku Sato, and Marco Andretti. And J.R. Hildebrand, a driver that Rob's been training up at Bruntingthorpe here in England, was leading the race and probably would have won the race, but for a slight error in strategy. Very, very quick as well. Marco's coming back to do more at Bruntingthorpe. J.R. Hildebrand is, I understand, and a couple of other IndyCar drivers are coming over as well. So it's all happening at Bruntingthorpe, all happening with Rob Wilson. His driver coaching system, absolutely brilliant. And I was speaking to him today, one of the top race engineers in the Formula One pit lane at the Spanish Grand Prix rang him from the airport today to congratulate him on his results at that Sao Paulo race and to book one of his drivers into the Rob training system as well. That team and driver I won't mention because it's all subject to an NDA, but they haven't been there yet, and this is another front-running Formula One driver going to Rob Wilson. So we'll be talking about that with Rob in upcoming shows throughout the year and indeed in future years. And we've also got another surprise in store involving Rob, but I won't talk too much about that right now. Complete change of pace. I'd just like to wish Bob Dance a very happy birthday tomorrow. Bob Dance, a guy very dear to my heart. He was a Team Lotus mechanic back in the early 60s. He was the main man behind the Lotus Cortina program that involved Jim Clark and many other top drivers. He was a Team Lotus Formula One mechanic as well, the Lotus 49 chief mechanic when Jimmy was racing in 67. And just an all-round good bloke. He's gone through the wars. He's had leukemia in the recent past. And just this last weekend, he was up at Donington, and then he was doing a charity film show appearance, got a terrible trapped nerve, sciatic nerve, but is now recovered again. So Bob, happy birthday for Friday. A nice little sequel to that trapped nerve with Bob Dance. John Miles, another good friend of mine with whom I used to work at Autocar magazine, but also a Team Lotus Formula One driver, Jochen Rindt's teammate in 1970. John remembered that the widow of Andrew Ferguson, used to be Team Lotus team manager, was also a physiotherapist, or is also a physiotherapist. I rang her and she did the work on Bob Dance. So the whole Team Lotus lot all got together and Bob's fine. So happy birthday tomorrow to Bob Dance. Okay, to our next section of the show. It was with some trepidation that I accepted an invitation recently to fly to the Philippines for just 4 days. That was the trepidation bit, just going there for 4 days and back, with Lotus F1 to host an event or co-host an event that they were staging in Manila. Now, I was intrigued by that because, generally speaking, F1 teams, when they do road shows, and they're brilliant, I love road shows, don't get me wrong, but when they do them, they're generally focused around an existing race in an existing country or one of the drivers that they have and their nationality. So it's not unusual or surprising to see Williams, for example, going to Venezuela, or indeed if Vitaly Petrov was driving in Formula One, to have that team go to Russia. It's quite unusual for a team, well, in fact, it's unique, I think, for a Formula One team to go to a country of one of their young drivers and start to promote the Formula One brand in that country. Now, that's a drum I've been beating for quite a long time now, this promotion of the Formula One brand, something we see very little of, or zero of, in places like China, Korea, Bahrain, where we do race. We go there, we do the job, whatever it is, over the 3 or 4 day weekend, but after that, nothing happens. And in my view, there should be a lot more promotion of the Formula One brand, either by Formula One generally or obviously by the teams. Well, anyway, here's Lotus going to the Philippines because they've seen some promise in a young driver called Marlon Stockinger. Strange name, but he's a Filipino, believe me. And I think that's really interesting because, of course, the driver has to have talent. He has to be worthy of the attention and the focus that you're going to try and generate around him. Like Pastor Maldonado is a very good example. But at the same time, unless the team helps the young driver do that, to generate all that interest, it's virtually impossible to do it alone. Maldonado did it, but it was a slightly different situation because you had a dictator, Hugo Chavez, who just decided that he wanted to put money into sport and wanted to put money into Formula One. That was like yeah, okay, I'll take the money. But that doesn't happen very often, and certainly doesn't happen in Asian countries of which I'm aware. So I thought it was really interesting that Lotus were going to do that. I agreed to do it. And I also have to say here that I'd been watching Marlon Stockinger for a couple of years in GP3, and I was around when he won at Monaco last year. Yeah, it was the second race, the shorter race, the reverse grid race, but he had Antonio Felix da Costa in his mirrors throughout the distance. He did the job. And the guy is not bad. He's won at British Formula Renault level, and now he's won at GP3 level. He's racing World Series by Renault, did pretty well in the first race, midfield, passed quite a lot of cars. He's articulate, he's a good-looking boy. He's the sort of guy that if you're going to be the only driver from a country and get a government behind him, that you'd want to have out there representing your team because he's got a good head on his shoulders. Anyway, I put together this video of my couple of days in the Philippines, and this is how it panned out.
2010 cars. Good to see them being put to serious use. And as I say, it's good for the boys as well. I don't mean that patronizingly, but in an era where we have so little testing, it's very frustrating, I think, for a lot of the race team, stroke test team, as it used to be, not to have outings. And although I think when you're not at an event like this, and you're away in Europe perhaps, and remote from what's going on, it may seem innocuous, a promo event like this, but of course when you're actually here and you see the face on that little boy there, and you see the crowd and the enthusiasm around two 2010 Lotus F1 cars, you see that there is this different world out there. Typically most teams run two cars, one as a spare, because what you cannot afford to do when you are putting on any sort of public demonstration is, well, you try never to have any issues that prevent the day from going ahead. Of course, one can have a shunt, as we saw in Venezuela with Pastor Maldonado, but even that kind of worked for the fans. They hadn't seen a shunt before in real life, and they saw one on home ground. Hopefully that won't happen today. But so the days of the spare car ironically return in the era in which testing is so limited, in which to reduce costs. And there's the two-seater, of course, over there. Looks a bit odd, but I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun for certain passengers. Count me out on that one. The concept of actually not really being able to see directly in front of you is not one that I embrace at all. And lots of normal motor racing type expressions and walking around. There's James Deacon, my co-host.
What's up, guys? Basically what's happening here is we were supposed to launch the cars at exactly 9 o'clock to celebrate what we call Kilometer Zero, which is a central point of Manila, and it's being relaunched by the Department of Tourism. Marlon Stockinger will be actually the face of Kilometer Zero. That obviously hasn't happened, but we're just waiting on some technical issues, and it's nothing to do with the cars. The cars have been ready to run since this morning. It's actually a few barrier issues. Some barriers didn't actually arrive, supposedly, and because safety is paramount, we're kind of just holding back a little bit. So we're building the excitement, I guess. That's probably the best way to put it right now. And, you know, it's a good opportunity. It's nice and hot. It's a good opportunity to sell some soft drinks. I know Kilometer Zero is where everything is measured from Manila. It's where our national hero was executed, and we have a monument there. It's called Rizal Park, and everything starts from there. So when you ever say Manila is 143 kilometers away on a street sign somewhere on the highway, they always refer to that point. All roads lead to that.
David Valsecchi arrives, 2012 GP2 champion. Very professional, organized looking guy. Very, very fast racing driver as well. And again, in this era of not enough seats, too many good drivers, Davide taking the next best option. And it's good, without wishing to harp on it too much, it's very good, I think, the way Lotus are running their driver program, and they're giving an opportunity to somebody like Davide, a real third drive. And you look at some teams out there, and you think if one of their main players was injured or couldn't race, how actually would they go with the third driver? Williams being quite a good example of that. But if Kimi or Roma for some reason couldn't race, you feel that with somebody like Davide, that the team would be in pretty good hands. And I think that's the right way to run a third driver.
Hey.
Have a great day, eh? So Eric Boulier's arrived, and Patrick Louis. The main players have arrived indeed. And to me, this is what gives this event its gravitas. It's having Eric Boullier here, team principal. Again, I can't think of too many team principals that would do this trip to the Philippines, but
he has, and I think it's because he met Marlon Stockinger quite an early phase of his career, a couple of years ago, and took the decision then that this was a guy who knew what he was talking about and could handle himself. And since then, they've been working on this Philippine project.
When we just start the car and Marlon we start to drive the car in the streets, people will not believe what they hear or what they see. And that's part of bringing F1 to the fan. And the biggest step for me, if you want to improve or to bring more passion, more followers, it's obviously Marlon, because he's today the only candidate in Philippines who can achieve Formula One, or who have the right to dream to achieve Formula One. I'm not saying this because he's sitting next to me, actually, because I'm quite tough normally. But he has the right maturity today. He's very quiet, calm, but also he's a racer, as you said before. We like to fight. He's obviously fast. And I think the challenge for him now is just to keep his head cool. Because you can see today, when you're doing a junior category, you're racing on your own and you have your own bike, and sometimes your father or your mother helping you with your helmet. But as soon as you touch Formula One, you fill up rooms like this with journalists. So this is very important for him to keep his head cool and just focus on his own job. And when he will fly back to Europe, I don't know, Monday or Sunday, he has to switch off F1 and go back to his normal racing life.
It's quite cool because literally where we had the event here for the road show, I grew up actually 10 minutes down the road on Manila Bay in a nice little flat with my parents, and it's just been it seemed so far at the time, because when I was growing up I really knew nothing about motorsport, and it was actually my father who got me into racing. He started racing go-karts here in the Philippines as a hobby, basically. I think he had a deal with his buddy and they were having a couple drinks, and basically he said, whatever you're gonna do, I'll do it too, and they decided on go-karts, and I guess the rest is history, because the minute they put me in one, I was hooked and I wanted to be a racing driver.
How did you make the break to Europe? At what stage of your life did you start coming to Europe?
I came as a teenager to Europe. I was about 16 or 17. The first championship I ever entered in Europe was actually the 2-liter Formula Renault UK Championship. I think it was in 2009. And I did my first full European or British campaign then.
And your dad's Swiss.
Yes.
But let's just talk a little bit about that. He lives and works in the Philippines and has done all your life, right?
Yeah, I mean, he came to the Philippines about 23, 24 years ago. And he stayed here ever since, you know. So at this point, you can even call him a Filipino. He's been here the rest of his life, and most of my family are based here. And it's been quite nice. Like, there's more and more of us hybrids in a way, but it's simply because we have a lot of overseas Filipino workers who actually leave the country and are working, and of course they settle in the new countries that they go into, whether it's in Europe, whether it's other parts of Asia. So it's not strange to have that, but also I think it's something that people here, at least, even the locals themselves, they accept you. I mean, if they know you're born here, you're raised here, to them you're a Filipino. So we're all really nice in that way, in that sense of our culture.
And you've always raced and felt as a Filipino?
Yes, I've always had the Philippine flag on my suit, on my helmet. I wear the flag very proudly, and I'm very proud to represent the country.
And what languages do you speak?
For sure, Tagalog, the national language of the Philippines, and English, of course, because I grew up in a house where we all spoke English. It was just easier for my mother and father. And I'd like to think I like to speak Italian or French, and of course Swiss German and German, but this is just the little bits just to get by in Europe, you know, the necessities, of course, in ordering food or stuff like this.
Now, it's a brilliant thing that A, you have the Lotus F1 deal, and B, that they're here starting to look at the potential of the Philippines. You know the country well, you know the economy. Can they do it? Can they come up with a budget that would enable you to do what you need to do?
I hope we've raised enough awareness after this event. Of course, it's the first time. I mean, we're a very new country in terms of, you know, building our modern day motorsport image. But we've always been very much a part of motorsport even since the beginning. I mean, we've had greats like Dodgy Laurel, who won the Macau Grand Prix twice and was actually, I think, on his way to win his third, but unfortunately died. And actually driven a Lotus car at the time as well. So we have a history of motorsport. I just think we never got the chance. So hopefully this road show, this event, the Lotus F1 team getting behind me and coming here to the Philippines all the way across Europe to support me. Hopefully it shows to the people that it just takes only a little bit more. I mean, I think the door's been as wide open as ever, as it has been in our history of motorsport. So hopefully we can capitalize on it.
I don't know. I don't think anyone knows, least of all those involved, can tell whether or not this will pay off, whether or not a Filipino driver will make it to Formula One as a result of what we've seen this weekend, as a result of the energy and the effort that's been put in to make this happen. But I tell you what, A, it's been a fun weekend, and I think a lot of locals have had a lot of fun. And B, you don't try, you never know. And for me, in a difficult economic climate, at a difficult time for motor racing in general, and Formula One's not isolated from that, and we see more and more teams having to rely on drivers to bring money in order to survive, in order to go racing. It's completely logical to work with a country which happens to have a driver on the way up, which isn't yet on the Formula One map, and to try to make it happen. And that's what this has been all about. Good luck to them. So that was the Philippines weekend. On our YouTube channel, we also have an extended version of that interview with Marlon Stockinger. And I think you'll agree, he's definitely a guy who knows what he's talking about. And for 22 years old, is definitely handling the pressure very well. I'd also like to say a big thank you to my mate, James Deacon, who I thought did a superb job getting the crowd behind the whole event. It's not an easy thing to do, but he is one of the best sort of anchor men I've worked with in a long, long time. So thanks to you, James. That's all we have time for this week. Hope you enjoyed it. Of course, this is the Spanish Grand Prix weekend. And next week, with our technical expert, Craig Scarborough, we'll be looking at all the updates of the teams. They're all bullish at the moment. They've all got updates. They're all going to go quicker. Yeah. Which ones actually are quicker and which ones have maybe even made the cars slower? We'll be looking at all that next week with Craig Scarborough. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, to like us on Facebook, and to register to our YouTube channel. Effectively subscribe. There's no money involved. Our show is free to air globally, but subscribe to our YouTube channel and you will get regular updates of any new content that appears. And I should add here that we have one additional video about to be published from that Manila weekend. It's behind the scenes. It's a bit of a travel log, but I love going there, and you can see that video on our YouTube channel. So see you next week with Craig Scarborough as we look back at the Spanish Grand Prix. Until then, good luck. Take care.